Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'll welcome you to the meeting of the 2nd of April 2024. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is Council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given, the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any persons present with a disability to vacate the building. Any apologies?
No apologies this evening.
This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at this council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect for elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any interests? Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah, I've got a few. Item 5.2. There is significant pecuniary interest in that one because it relates. Item 2.2. I have several customers who've put in submissions to this one, so I won't vote on that one. Item 2.3 in planning and development, the Leeds. Item in the IPC, item 3.2, next to Greg's work. So significant pecuniary interest in all of those.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Item 2.1 in the Finance Policy Committee meeting, the small donations grant, Bloomfield Junior Rugby League, as I am secretary of that club, so I will be leaving the room and will not vote.
And I'll be declaring an interest in the same one as Councillor Greenhalgh was on my ticket, so I'll be declaring the same interest. Any others? Being no others. Councillors, there's no opening prayer, so we'll adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. Tonight we have 6 speakers, and our first speaker is Mr. David McDonald. Mr. McDonald here, yep. Mr. McDonald, just come to the lectern there and I'll just introduce you to the other councillors. Councillor Whitten, Councillor Greenhalgh, Councillor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard, Councillor Peterson, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Evans, Councillor Kinghorn and Councillor Miletto. You've got 5 minutes, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address this meeting today. Council, I'm speaking regarding the development at 5 Cadogan Crescent. Council need to be very careful of the precedent that is being set in this development. We are not against development in Cadogan Crescent. It is to be welcomed. But the approval of such a massive proposal as this will have a severe impact on the sunlight and aspect of the surrounding properties all year round. The Orange Development Control Plan requires that the development application includes information that clearly indicates how the proposed design responds to the site analysis and that considers neighbourhood character. Development applications should clearly demonstrate how the planning outcomes are being met when alternative designs are being presented. The proposed scale of the building neither complements nor enhances the existing character of Cadogan Crescent. And the height and scale are unnecessary to achieve the desired outcomes. The form and scale of this proposal have no relationship to the existing neighbourhood, scale or character. The eastern and western aspects of this development present as a singular solid brick wall, regardless of any setback on the second level. Council officers have submitted this is not greatly different in impact of the ridgeline of Fort Cadogan, which is 900 mils lower. I refer you to the submitted drawing from the architect. It bears no comparison, and I find such a suggestion as that it does quite troubling. The applicants do not give adequate argument as to how the planning outcomes are being met as per the legislated outcome requirements. PO 7.78 requires buildings are sited and designed to ensure daylight to habitable rooms, adjacent dwellings is not significantly reduced, overshadowing of no neighbouring development, neighbouring secluded open spaces or main living area windows is not significantly increased. I understand the point about northern sunlight, but that is not the only requirement for this development. Sunlight will be massively decreased in our main living area. The development will significantly diminish the amenity of Fort Cadogan, and we're very sceptical of the assurances that the required sunlight will be provided to the main area of Fort Cadogan, and note the outcome of Barton versus Orange City Council. We're told to expect the sun to rise from 11 o'clock on the 21st of June, in the middle of winter. Regardless, our enjoyment of the unique appeal of Cadogan Crescent will be greatly reduced and heating requirements will be significantly increased, adding to the energy footprint of this development. It's also apparent that any window hood on the rear western window on the upper level will provide no privacy along the eastern wall of Cadogan. It is on the beyond the northern wall of Cadogan Crescent, or Cadogan. This building is designed to encompass the maximum depth allowable from the front setback all the way to 900 mils from the rear fence. It will be at least 6.2 metres tall and present as a solid brick wall in profile. The rear of the development will fall well outside the VBE due to the slope in the ground. This is particularly an issue due to the proximity of the buildings at 5 and 4 Cadogan. It would also appear that the upper level VBE, the level of the building will fall outside the VBE even without allowing for the slope in the ground. There's no justification for this in the submitted development plan as required by the LEP, and it is not for council to find reason to override existing constraints. Rather, the onus is clearly legislated that the applicant needs to demonstrate a compelling case to do so. It is difficult to conceive any reasonable argument that this plan falls anywhere close to the planning objectives. We suggest that the solution would be a development that encompasses reasonable sight lines from existing houses, lessening of the unnecessary scale of the development, particularly lowering the parapet levels and the extent of the second story to the rear.
Mr. McDonald, that's 5 minutes. Move an extension. Yep, keep going,
Okay.
Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. We're not opposed to the front of the development being 2 stories. Cadogan Crescent is a unique enclave in the centre of Orange of moderately sized houses with leafy green backyards, with open view to the sky. Many of the buildings will need some form of redevelopment in the years to come. As pointed out in your briefing cases, this development will set the tone for future development. It needs to be done while keeping safe the qualities that make Cadogan so special. This is an opportunity for building that is both modern and exciting, that reflect the character of the area and set a precedent for community design. There's no need to destroy the character and the amenity of its residents by encouraging buildings that set a precedent to exceed the stated guidelines without good reason. we would ask that councillors should take the chance to visit the site before any decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Our next speaker is Mr. Andrew McKibben. Mr. McKibben, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to present to you today. If I could refer you to figure 6 in your papers, please. You'll see the extent of the development. One of the concerns basically are the amount that this development encroaches into the backyard. Cadogan Crescent, like a number of properties in Orange, have by nature large backyards. Orange has been very successful in enticing young families to come to this city. Council has been great in what it has done with the tree plantings, the parks, the gardens, making Orange an environment in which young families want to come to. That has been crucially important to the philosophy, as I understand it, of Orange. What we want to entice is young families to have houses that have large backyards. That is the nature of Cadogan or Cadogan Crescent, however you'd like to pronounce it. We have a house. Our children basically kick footballs around there, play soccer balls, use a cricket bat, have a trampoline. So do other families. My niece and her husband and their friends have come to Orange for that specific purpose. Houses, large backyards. If you look at figure 6, you will see how much this house extends into the backyard. It changes the character. As Mr. McDonald said, what are you trying to create in Orange? You want young families here. Also, if you extend this sets a precedent. You have these buildings extending into the backyard. You have this concept of these internal courtyards. They're not backyards. You meet technically the open space requirement may be met, but it's made with these internal courtyards, not with large backyards that are family friendly for the barbecues, for the kicking the football around, for using the cricket bat, for having the family lunch in the backyard with your children. That's our concern. As Mr. McDonald said, we're not so concerned about the front and the two-storey aspect. We're concerned that this encroaches back so far into the backyard and at a height that is 6 metres. A number of houses, and at number 7, we will see a brick wall. Although it is tiered, that is what it'll look. This development goes back 6.2 metres back beyond the existing house in Cadogan Crescent. At 6.2 metres. You only have to look at that diagram. And that basically is for an atrium over the dining and living area. 6 metres high. Now, if council is minded to allow this and this encroachment on a backyard, why can't the apex be 4.5 metres with a gable roof to at least allow views and sunlight to the surrounding properties? In the papers, it says that a number of the properties already have higher buildings around. Houses were purchased after that. We don't want to further encroach on the sunlight and the views from our backyards. Again, I remind councillors, do you want to set a precedent where all our backyards become built out with buildings like this? Again, we're not opposed to the two-storey at the front, not opposed to development. But please remember, in Orange, we want young families and we want families with backyards where those children can play safely. If I can go through a couple of other things. Sunlight in winter. We all know how important that is in Orange. Any infringement on sunlight causes a problem. Now, council papers say for number 4 or for number 4 and 6, yes, there is an infringement on sunlight. I think it said number 4 wouldn't get it had a delay till 11 o'clock because of the building, and in number 6 it was till 1. There was an effect on the sunlight after 1 p.m. Any infringement on sunlight causes a problem because of our winters. We all know that. So again, although technically the proponents may have met the requirements, this is Orange. There's a lack of sunlight in June, July, and we all know that. It is interesting that the heights that have been put forward for the building, when looking at it critically, the question is, can these heights be preserved?
Mr. McKibben, that's 5 minutes. Yeah, extension, thank you. All those in favour? Against, carried. Keep going, Mr. McKibben.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So it's believed that a survey should be requested at the completion of any build to ensure that the heights indicated in the plans have been met as part of the occupation certificate requirements. Councillors, again I remind you, Orange has been successful in bringing young families. Young families need large backyards. Don't set a precedent with this development that means that anyone in Orange can follow this and start building over the backyards. We do not want houses like in certain suburbs of Sydney, and that's why a lot of people have come to Orange, where there is minimal backyard for kids to enjoy themselves. Thank you very much, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. McKibben. Our next speaker is Mr. David Knock. You've got 5 minutes, Mr. Knock.
Both Mr. McDonald and Mr. McKibben discuss various aspects of the development. There are two main criticisms of the development: overshadowing and its design. The council report that you've received shows that in respect of the overshadowing, all of the requirements of the developmental plans for Orange are met. They are met not by just amounts, but by very amounts. The overshadowing, particularly of number 4 is interesting. If you inspect number 4 at the moment, there is a hedge running right along the western boundary of the building, and it is then 3 metres. It covers and reduces the sunlight already to 4. And the hedge has, since we've owned it, never been pruned or cleaned and never been asked to. But when in respect of the building that we're going to do, it won't be any different to the hedge that's existing there now. The second question is the question of design. Now, we make no apologies that it's a modern house. A house that is considered and designed by an architect in accordance with 21st century requirements. The house particularly takes into account the use of sunlight and the entrance of sunlight into the home itself. It does extend across the block, but it still only covers a bit over 40% of the whole area. The fact that we've turned it on the side is a fact of design for us to be able to use the area as areas where we can sit and is protected from the climate of Orange coming from the south and west. It's a building, let me say, that we believe is for the 21st century. It takes account of designs and that to reduce the use of heating to enable the building to comply with all of the regulations that are there. We've used brick materials. We can't, unfortunately, get the bricks that would give us the same design as we have in the Dalton Heritage area. You simply can't get them. But the bricks that we will use, and that will be governed by the heritage people of the council, will be more in keeping with the Dalton area than the present red brick that's there. And I would remind council about modern houses in old areas. I'm old enough to remember a considerable furore about a group of houses on the Bathurst Road that are called the P&O houses. Those houses were built before the Second World War, and they are now heritage listed. One would hope that this building will be one that in the future those of us may look at and say, that are still around, may look at and say, here's what we built in the 21st century and not the 19th and 20th. I was interested to hear Mr McKibben about young people. Yes, Orange does need young people, need backyards, but it also attracts a great many old people like myself, and we don't necessarily need backyards that we have to mow and look after and that. This house will be a house that will be suitable for people who in their retirement and want to live close to the town. That is the purpose that we bought the land, and that is the purpose that we want to use it for. Thanks, Council.
Thank you, Mr Knock. Our next speaker is Mr Jeff Norton, and he's speaking on the Pinnacle Road Speed. 5 minutes, Mr Norton.
Thanks for calling me, Mr Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I want to acknowledge that I might be getting a little ahead of myself because I believe this is only a topic for discussion at this point, but rather than be apathetic, I'd like to address you in the first instance. I live at 664 Pinnacle Road, puts me 6.5 kilometres from the post office. I travel the road 3 or 4 times a day, very convenient ducking into town, but I'm here to advocate for the status quo to remain on Pinnacle Road. I represent probably 7 or 8 people that I've spoken to since I became aware of the issue. Whatever decision council make on Pinnacle Road should be done with the maximum community consultation. I believe that if you lower the speed limit, it will be an attempt to, I'm not sure legislate's the right word, but legislate to protect people from stupidity. Whether the speed limit is 80 kilometres or 60 kilometres an hour, you cannot legislate against stupidity. So whatever view you take on the speed limit issue, I'd hope that the status quo would remain. The things that I would ask that council might look into would be improving the road facilities on what's commonly called a tourist drive. But when I look at the tourist drive signs, I feel slightly embarrassed. So that's pretty much all I got to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr Norton. Mr Hawke, you're right, and Ian, Mr Ian Hawke. No, all good. Okay, thank you. The council meeting will now resume. There are no mayoral minutes. I'll move on to item 3.1, which is confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have a
Mr Mayor.
move? Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the policy committees, and I'll now hand over to Councillor Whitten for the Planning and Development Policy Committee. You can take that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 2nd of April 2024, and the time being around 5 minutes to 7. I understand that we have declarations of interest from Councillor Kinghorn for items 2.2 and 2.3. Is that correct, Councillor Kinghorn? Does anyone have any further declarations that they would like to make at this point? There's none. Okay, item 2.1 is items approved under delegated authority of council. Have a mover. It's been moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion on this item? There being no discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 2.2, development application. Sorry, Councillor Kinghorn. Okay, let the minutes show that Councillor Kinghorn has left the chamber for item 2.2. Okay, development application DA 2662023 Cadogan Crescent. The recommendation is on page 12, councillors. Moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whilst I appreciate that this DA is to comply with all regulations, there is obviously some concern by some of the residents there. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion. Good, please.
You're the mover of the motion. Are you? So what I can allow you to do, Councillor, is so you've moved the motion as printed, okay?
Yeah, with an amendment.
So if you wish to adjust the motion, because you're the mover,
Mr. Chair,
he can adjust the motion, right?
Yeah, could I adjust the motion, please?
And I'll need, once I get it from you, the seconder will need to agree. The floor is yours, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I want to adjust the motion would now read that the matter to be deferred until the next meeting to allow all councillors the opportunity to attend a site inspection.
All righty. So it is no longer, so Councillor Miletto has changed his motion. He is not voting for the recommendation of approval. He is moving a deferral. Councillor McDonald, do you still wish to remain the seconder?
No.
Okay, thank you. So it's been seconded by Councillor Duffy. So we have a motion of deferral, okay? Do I have any speakers for or against, Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, I appreciate what Councillor Miletto is trying to do here, but maybe everyone else had other plans over the long weekend, but I had plenty of time to get to the site since we got the papers to have a good look at the site. So I'm satisfied that we had enough time to do the investigations ourselves.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Carry on.
Yeah, I'll speak for the amendment. I think that's well and good to go and have a look, but I think having council staff with us, we can ask some questions and have a good look at what we're. Before we do, it's a pretty important DA. I think having council staff with us to ask some questions is prudent for something like this, so I'll be supporting the amendment.
Any further speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the resolution of Councillor Miletto on the number of bases there where we listened to the speakers that came in and presented their issues of sunlight, the ambience of the area, the bulk and scale of the building, the setbacks and the heritage of the area, and the removal of the front tree on the street. There's a removal of the tree request there, and as the Councillor Hamling says, maybe we should be there with staff and all make an informed decision of exactly what's going to happen. We even had the developer himself, or the applicant himself, talk about issues of design and heritage and shadowing of 40%, and the climate come from the southwest. Well, most of the climate that I know from being here for a lot of years has come from the northwest. So let's sit down and have a look at discuss with staff on site and go that way. I'm not leaning either way on the whole issue, but I know that I had approached by a member that lived next door, and he was quite concerned, very elderly and concerned. And I said, well, look, my interpretation would be let's go and have a good look.
Further speakers? Before you close, Councillor Mileto, please do. Well, I'll make a comment. Oh, sorry, Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, only to support the amendment and to say that that gives us a bit of time. I remember hearing about the Kearney Drive Childcare Centre that the DA was opposed, ultimately went to court and cost council $58,000. So it'd be good to know of the legal implications if we did oppose, and that gives us time to find that out.
All right, well, just on that, council staff have approved the motion. Okay, so for us to refuse the instrument of approval, it's just a reminder that we need to have a legal reason to do so, like probably bulk and scale. But so deferring the motion, you will still need to, if you were against it in the future, have a planning legal reason for staff to bring back to council. So just on that, so the council have approved the DA and pretty much all the speakers have made very good comments about the ambience of the area. But the developer of the application has also made some good comments as well. At the end of the day, they own the land, and they've put forward a good proposal that has been approved by the planning staff. So, but we only have a motion to defer. If there's no further speakers, I'll allow the mover to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all councillors making those comments. Yes, I was busy over, as were a number of councillors, over the long weekend. It wasn't, as the Mayor said, it's not just a matter of us turning up and making our own informed opinion. I'd like to give anybody the opportunity to meet councillors there at that time, if they would like, or after we meet with council staff, to point anything out or raise any concerns. That goes for the applicant as well. Is a complying DA at this point in time. Not a matter of just making a decision, making the right decision. I think that allowing 2 weeks up until the next meeting is acceptable under these circumstances. So thank you.
All right, the motion is for a deferral. Please raise your hand if you agree with the motion. Against? The motion is unanimous. Okay. Thank you, councillors. Oh, Councillor Power, my apologies, councillor. You'll need to put your hand up higher. I'm only a little fella, I can't see over the top. So we move on to item 2.3, post-exhibition of LEP amendments 34, rezoning of 264, 274 Leeds Parade. Recommendations are on page 114. No. Councillor Kinghorn's still out. Do I have a mover? It's been moved by Councillor Lloyd, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy.
If I don't see your hand, please give me a whistle, mate.
Will do. I'm happy to support the recommendation. I appreciate that at this stage of the development, it's probably not particularly productive to be raising considerations that some of the development include affordable housing. However, I'm sure there would be interest within this chamber for that to be considered at the appropriate time down the track.
Thank you. Any further speakers? These are all boring tonight. Okay, I'll put the motion all in favour. Against, motion is carried. So we'll wait for Councillor Kinghorn to return before I close the committee meeting. Right, thank you, councillors. That concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting at 5 minutes past 7. And I'd like to invite Councillor Evans to conduct the Infrastructure and Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I will open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting for the 2nd of April, the time being 7:05. Yeah, daylight savings. I think Councillor Kinghorn's got a declaration of interest in item 3.2. Is that correct? Thank you. No other declarations of interest? No. One on page 6, which is the minutes of the Traffic Committee. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Floyd. Thank you. Any discussion on the Traffic Committee meetings? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Thank you. We'll move on to item 3.1, current works on page 145. Can I have a mover for the current works, please? Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Powder, second. Thank you for the discussion. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Question through you to the Director, again about the Molong Road OAGS footpath, more specifically about the section. I know we're waiting on Transport for the works approval for the actual creek crossing. But my question is about the portion of footpath that is yet to be installed in front of what is the property known as Brillig, I believe. Just wondering what are we waiting for on that one?
Director Greenham.
I'd like to take it on notice and just identify exactly where that property is.
That's the property between the Ploughman's Creek and OAGS.
Between Ploughman's Creek and OAGS?
Yeah.
Yep. It also includes the bridge construction and
yes,
the approaches to it.
Yeah,
so,
but it doesn't only include that bit. There's still a substantial part that it just doesn't seem like there's. I'm just wondering if there's a land acquisition or something, because it doesn't actually seem like there's enough space between the edge of the highway and the front fences of a property.
Yeah,
you can take it on
again,
notice. That's fine. But
notice.
it just,
I'm aware,
when you look at the width of the path that's already out the front of OAGS.
Yep.
It just doesn't seem like it'd fit. So anyway. Happy to take it on notice.
Good, thank you.
More question to Mr. Chair regarding the trees on the roundabout Hill and Summer. What's happened there? Did a car actually take those out, or is some idiot snapped them and vandalised those trees in the centre of the roundabout?
And I'll take that on notice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the CEO or one of the directors. My matter arising is to do with the Southern Feeder Road, page 152. I've been approached by members of the St Neville House Rimfire range down there. They've asked me to find out if a fence is going to be erected around the front of the range upon the completion of the works in progress, and if so, who will be contracted to do the work, and what is an approximate time frame for the completion of the work?
Thank you.
I'll answer the last question first, in that the approximate time frame for the completion of the work is September, October of this year. And I'm not too sure about the discussions in regard to a fence at the between the highway and between the Southern Feeder Road and the shooting range. I've been to the shooting range and they have their own fence demarcating their live site as such, but I'll take that one on notice and see where. Obviously they're referring to some sort of discussions, but I haven't been a party to those. Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Chair, also on page 152 in relation to the East Orange harvesting wetlands, a bit in there that after a meeting there was some ambiguity exists about how council's water take is to be accounted for. What's the ambiguity? And I'm just that because that's been the issue with the people who are on the downstream who are unhappy about it in the first place. So why was it ambiguous? What? Tell me.
Certainly. So we've got new staff from the Department of Planning that are actually reviewing application. So, it's now DQ, so Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water. And they've got a different interpretation to how we meter water. We generally meter it when we take it out of the natural system and put it into our holding pond or into Suma Park Dam and then take it off for residential use. Their interpretation was that we would be metered for diverting the water into a wetland that would then divert back to the natural system, which would be counting it several times and far more times than because water would be diverted even in a natural flow under the harvesting, under the design of the development would be diverted to replenish the wetland, but then it just joins back into the natural system. But their interpretation was that we'd be metered for that. And then we would also be metered. There's a proposal for a little, I suppose, stepping stone pond that has some Indigenous story time associated with it, and just the recycling of that water from pumping it up to the stepping stone pond and coming back down into the wetland, that was also going to be metered. All of which would take a big grab out of council's allocation for water out of the water sharing plan. So the water sharing plan doesn't change. Our allocation under the water sharing plan doesn't change. But the interpretation of these new officers was that they would meter us at several locations rather than when we actually take it for domestic use.
So there's another meeting next month. What's happening? Are they going to be educated or are we going to be educated?
Bit of both. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have their interpretation. But essentially, if they choose to run it that way, then the whole idea of having a off-stream detention basin was to make sure that we weren't damming the main channel. If they choose to meter it in 3 separate locations, it makes the whole system untenable. And rather than improving the city's water security, it would decrease the city's water security. And on that basis, rather than building something off-stream, I would be proposing to council that we build something on-stream. It would be less environmentally sensitive, but it would actually increase our water supply. We wouldn't be taking water out to replenish any wetland because the wetland would be constructed in stream. Therefore, under those interpretations, we wouldn't be metered for it.
Councillor King, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question to the Director is it's also a follow-on from Councillor Floyd. There is a significant heritage area up there on the Southern Feeder Road, on the southern side of it. Is that going to be acknowledged in some sort of signage in the process of building the Southern Feeder Road?
It's not part of the scope of the Southern Feeder Road, but it's certainly within council's remit to recognise any significant heritage areas.
Thank you. Further comments on current works? Councillor Greenhouse.
Yeah, I just like to congratulate the staff for the work that they've done on the Northern Distributor Road with the footpath and the lighting. Had so much positive feedback about that. It's a really good win for us and our community. So thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
Further comments? There are none. I'll make a comment on my own. Just the back of the ever impressive numbers over at the airport. I'm just wondering if staff might provide an update on where we're up to with the Newcastle route following our meetings in September.
Yes, with our meetings, we've had a couple of meetings so far, and then we were running into the Christmas period where it wasn't appropriate to do a survey because we have reduced numbers through there. But we've been, between the departments of within council, we've made some preliminary discussions around conducting a survey on site of passengers, because there isn't a lot of data about flights between Orange to Sydney and then Sydney to Newcastle. So that information isn't there to support a route.
And how's the formulation of that data gathering coming along? Is it close to being presented to the public to fill it out, or not?
Absolutely,
quite? Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just a comment whilst you're talking about airport. I did notice today that there's a grant funding allocation from the federal government for airport security. So I'll give that detail to the director to have a look at. I'm not sure. I do know with some grant fundings, they do exclude different bodies from applying for it, but I'm sure local government would be allowed to apply for it. It's only a new one. It's only come out today.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I do know in the future we're considering security for the airport, so better to have the feds pay for it than the ratepayers.
Thank you. No further comments. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Kinghorn's got to depart.
Bring it back.
We'll move to item 3.2, which is the adoption of the contributions plan on page 155. I have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Thank you, Councillor Power. Any discussion on the contributions plan? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. Just 3 questions. I might just do the first one because it's a bit involved first. So on page 156, there's just reports the $20,000 local infrastructure contributions donation cap from 2012. I was just surprised. It's obviously more than a decade ago. Is there a plan for adjustment due to inflation? I thought maybe there was in item 3.12 on page 183. It was just unclear what, if anything, happened to that during the intervening years, 2012 to 2024. And if that's legislated, should we lobby for a change, as I'm sure with inflation that will impact the cap funding amounts we can get?
Director Greenham.
An excellent question. There is no change to the cap that was set nearly 2 decades ago. We have made submissions previously, but happy to take councillors' support with that and make further submissions to the new government.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure council will be happy for that. The 2 other questions was, does that $20,000 include the coverage of things like footpaths, roads, water and sewage, or is that on top of? Because $20,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money for those bits of infrastructure.
Water and sewer contributions are levied separately, and together they add up to about $35,000 a lot. But they do include roads, community facilities like community buildings, and so things like swimming pool, future swimming pool programs can be, or expansion can be put into a contributions plan. So it includes a range of things, but roads, footpaths, yeah.
And the only final question, obviously the recommendation is that we adopt the 2022 Orange contribution plan. Just wanted to know why that was and not 2024.
I'm happy for you to amend that slight
oops, sorry.
error to 2024. Thank
Very
you.
well.
Good pick up.
Mr. Chair, we just note everyone, please, that should read the 2024 contribution plan. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a follow-on from a question from Councillor Peterson, my concern is, and we had the Premier come out and say, look, he's not real happy with the planning laws across New South Wales, especially in Sydney. And I think it's probably a good opportunity for us to remind him that we also need some adjustments out here as well. So I think it's with you, Mr. CEO, we can take to the local government conference in New South Wales as a resolution to maybe support for other councils as well. I'd imagine there would be.
Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And look, I'd be seeking an amendment to the motion, if I can get a seconder.
What is it?
The amendment would be that defer this matter for 2 to 3 months or an appropriate time period to allow for further consultation. Speak to it if given the opportunity.
I'll second that.
Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there appears to be been considerable changes made to the plan, and I would strongly suggest that rather than just adopting the contributions tonight, that we wait until the current planning proposals are progressed far enough, including council's own land, to ensure that all infrastructure requirements have been determined. With the extent of those changes, it would be prudent to either delay the adoption of this plan so that issues can be addressed and have the plan re-advertised, given that the extent of the changes council staff have made to the plan. Given that there have been numerous changes in the past 18 months, the planning proposals being lodged on areas identified as housing strategy and council's own housing proposal, not included in the housing strategy, it would seem to ensure that enough appropriate infrastructure needs are determined. It appears from a quick check of the population in Orange that council's own proposal on the eastern side of Orange have not been factored into the current plan, nor have the infrastructure requirements for this development area have been determined. The council have also addressed section 64, which we just spoke about, headwork charges and development services plans for water and sewerage. And as Councillor Peterson has indicated, they haven't been updated since 2009, 2012 respectively. But and that was prior to Sheryl Lee being rezoned in 2014. My understanding that these should normally be reviewed every 4 to 8 years, or where the new DSP is deemed to be warranted. My understanding is that that hasn't occurred. You'd also expect that the adoption of their housing strategy, a new DSP for water and sewer, should be adopted to ensure that the delivery of the required infrastructure can be delivered in a timely manner to facilitate development in these areas. They are my reasons, Chair, why I'll be seeking a deferment for 2 to 3 months.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'll speak against the deferral. A couple of reasons. My understanding from staff is that this has already been advertised as is twice. I mean, there's only so much sort of time we can, and this has been going on for 2 years now. If we delay 2-3 months, we're less than, or a bit over 5 months away from the next election. And then, of course, we have the caretaker period. I think delaying it is just sort of handballing it down the road. The other thing too that we got confirmation this afternoon from Director Greenham that if there are amendments to be made to this, they can actually come before us to update parts of this plan. So I think this has been 2 years in the works, and there has been time for consultation, and it's been advertised. I can't see any real justification for delaying it. If there are updates that need to be done, we can do that as they arise. And in terms of the cap on the 20,000, we have no say over that. That's state government. We need to make that.
Councillor McDonald, I think you may be referring to item 5.2 of general business.
Am I?
Yeah, you're on the wrong.
Have I fast forwarded ahead, have I?
That's all good.
Mr. Chair, I'll speak for the amendment because I think Councillor McDonald was on the right one, except just for that email from Councillor.
Yeah, I think that's the only bit.
That's the only bit that you were off target. Everything else was fine.
Missing something from my papers then.
You said we got the email from Councillor.
I did.
From
I
Director.
did.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was about the other one in general business. Yep. The subdivision.
Okay.
I'll speak for the amendment. I think, this is another very important document. Sure, it's been going around for a couple of years, but we need to get this right. So I'm quite happy. There have been some changes. Like you got to look at our population; it has increased. So I'm quite happy to have some more input from the developers and whoever else who wants to put input into this. Another couple of months won't hurt this.
Councillor Whitten.
Chairman, the only question I would have through you, Mr. Chairman, to the CEO, to the Director, what's the impact of delaying it?
That's a very good question, Mr.
Director
Greenham.
Greenham.
Yeah.
Very good question. I could probably talk a couple of scenarios. So if you're considering the council Landcom proposal, it's currently not listed in the development control plan, so they would pay the default contribution for each of the lots created under that plan. However, They would also be responsible, it's about $13,000 instead of the $20,000, but they would also be penalised because every piece of infrastructure that supports that development has to be constructed by that developer. Whereas in some cases, say Shirley, for example, development within there, a lot of the roads within Shirley are actually upgraded by council. So Shirley Road itself, significant upgrades of those roads to support developers beside those roads are paid for by council. Whereas for the Landcom site, every road that they touch, they'll be developing themselves as a condition of consent if it stays out of the plan as it's currently proposed. The other option is that the same would affect any other developer that puts a planning proposal in that's considered this is adopted. So what we've got is we've currently got a housing strategy that lists a large number of lands to be considered for future development. And currently they're entitled to put a planning proposal in to rezone them, supported by the housing strategy, and put a development application in, and also be afforded the default fee of $13,000 a lot. So I generally wouldn't support a deferral on that basis, because it means that they're not contributing to all those other things.
So we're losing capital.
Yeah, the discussion around
infrastructure.
The discussion around the development servicing plan for water and sewer. There is a development servicing plan for water and sewer being developed, but it's a completely separate issue to what's in front of council today. There is a development servicing plan being developed to respond to the housing strategy as well. That will come before council in due course.
So, Mr. Mayor, look, I do understand the reasons for the. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, for the deferral to just have more discussions, but there's nothing stopping councillors from bringing back to the chamber changes to the policy if it's deemed in conjunction with staff, if it's good value for the ratepayers to do so. I think if we defer this, then the city are going to lose capital based on what the new developments are going to be for infrastructure purposes. And if I understand the director correctly, then under the default scheme, the council are going to be responsible for servicing the infrastructure, where in this one, potentially the developer is going to be responsible for it. Am I close, Mr. Director? That was my interpretation of what you just said.
Close, yes.
For that reason, I can't support the amendment. I have to go over the motion. But what the comment that's been raised here by several councillors is a real issue for the city and local government as a whole. And that's the timeliness of our DA application approval. And I think the community, especially the industry, knows that it's basically not council being slow, it's because they don't have the resources to do so. But it's primarily the impact of the planning portal. And I think that we need to, as a council, and I've been speaking to the CEO and the Director for Planning, Mr. Hodges, about this, and I do know that the government at the moment are also making, or the Premier has made comment that they're going to look to change the portal because it's creating a lot of development application issues for the developers in a time when we have a housing shortage, right? So if we were to pump out land, and we have the developers and we have the builders and the tradies who want to do the work, but we can't get the DAs out in a timely fashion, then we're complicating the issue of a shortage of housing. So I think we do need to raise it. I don't know the answer to it. Maybe firstly having a more improved and more efficient planning portal probably would be the The obvious way to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll support the recommendation.
Councillor Whitten. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is probably to the Director again, and that is, one would tend to think if we leave it at status quo and support the amendment, it would be a benefit to the Landcom situation that we've got to deal with as regards to affordable housing. I would tend to think that would be a saving there. Where'd he go?
Director Greenham.
Sorry if I can trouble you to repeat the question. I was just taking some advice.
My question revolves around if we support the amendment, we're supporting virtually status quo for a few months, and with the Landcom deal which you make for affordable housing, there would be a benefit there to the developer, or irrespective whether it be us or whether it be the Landcom, to have more affordable housing instead of passing this and putting the price up. Would that be correct?
I'll let the development director take that one, but I'd say no. Council, as the developer, if it makes any money, then it stays within council's money. We don't all take it home or anything. It stays as the ratepayers' money. So significant infrastructure builds like the conservatorium, for example, is being funded by a significant allocation of funds by council. So, I'll pass it on.
Director Hodges.
Mr. Chair, I might just clarify for the Landcom side of the Redmond Place estate that we're in the process of preparing a planning proposal for with Landcom. That will be separate. It has nothing to do with the paper that's before you tonight, as are future rezoning applications or planning proposals that would come before you. We normally start looking at those. When they come to you in the future, say for example the one tonight for Leeds Parade, we do look at what the contribution requirements for are as they come in, and is there a need to amend the contribution plan specifically for those amendments as they come through. So probably best to not confuse future development with what is before you at the moment. Before you at the moment is the identified areas that have been part of growth areas that with a nexus, they call it, which is a pure connection or identified connection in that plan of where we would like to or need to provide or charge to provide services of a certain level of those blocks. Not going for the future stuff. It doesn't. Redmond Place is not going to be impacted adversely by you adopting this, and it's not going to get a benefit of it either. That will be looked at with the planning proposal later on, as would if North Orange did another subdivision rezoning rather up there, it would be addressed at the time. So this is just the existing ones.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Yeah, I can't support the amendment, and thanks to the directors for the information they've provided. We need to adopt this plan that's been developed and undergone extensive consultation in relation to the changes as they were at the time that the work was done on this. As I think Director Hodges has just talked about a bit, if we've got further developments, which are always going to happen, things are going to change, we can go through another round of revising contributions plan, but at this point we need to we heard earlier about the lifestyle and the attraction to families coming to Orange. We need to be able to fund the infrastructure, the community infrastructure that our growing city needs. Our biggest constraint is this $20,000 cap, and that's something that we do have to try to deal with. I did want to suggest in relation to that, maybe I am aware, I think there are both state and Commonwealth parliamentary inquiries into the financial sustainability of local government going at the moment. I would suggest that is one thing to make a submission on to the state inquiry at least, and we might look at other things that we want to make comments on, but I think putting our input into those sorts of inquiries is really important, and raising those issues, because we do need to be able to continue to fund the infrastructure that the city
needs. So yeah, I think we need to adopt this now. It has had consultation. We've seen the extensive work that staff have done into going through one particularly extensive submission that was made and addressing all of the issues that have been raised. Let's now take this up and adopt it. And if more work needs to be done, that's another round of work and consultation to revise the plan. Thanks.
Councillor Hamley.
Just a question. So what you're telling me, if we go with the amendment, it'll be 13,000. If we go with what's printed, it's 20,000.
Is that a nod?
I don't think it. Thank you. On page 156 of the council's report, there's a table in there that actually identifies where the amounts are and where the cap comes into. So, so for a number of areas such as Ploughman's Valley, Waratahs, Molong Road Entrance, North Orange, Rosedale Gardens and Shirley, their projects are all above the 20,000 cap, so the 20,000 cap applies. Northwest Orange, the nexus to that only added up to $15,857. Phillip Street, the nexus to that added up to about $19,500. The remainder of the LGA is about $9,000 and Bloomfield DPI area is about $12,500. So
quite into your question,
the cap applies to all those ones, as it probably does now for most of those as well. Am I right there? Yeah. So it's really not too much change from the existing status quo. Yep. Those areas.
Councillor Miletto, you close the
Thank
debate.
you. No, just a point of clarification or just a question to the director. It's my understanding that the reason why these areas such as Shirley went over is because council had certain requirements which they wanted, my understanding, which the developers had to comply with. Footpaths, wider roads, stuff like that is.
No, footpaths are actually paid for by the developer separate to the developer contributions.
Then why did it go over by so much?
Why has it gone over by so much is because we included things like the Southern Feeder Road in there to help with certain stages of the Southern Feeder Road that apply to the Shirley development, as well as other capital things, which we knew we would be able to get funding from state government for as well, state and federal government. And we've been successful in getting funding from state and federal government to help fund those things. So we put them in the plan to make it a strategic position of council to develop these roads. Without such, we never would have got funding for those, for the Southern Feeder Road, if it wasn't listed in a plan somewhere. So we put these things in. Yes, the totals outstrip the money available that we can draw from developer contributions, but because it's a strategic road that council wants to build and develop to help open up these new residential areas, then we were able to seek funding from other levels of government to help support it.
The road up in Shirley, it was quite unique in one area, wasn't it? Is it a standard road or was there something unique about the road?
I'm not following your question there.
My understanding is that the road was different to other roads with the way it was constructed. I thought there was like a horseshoe or something up there, which I thought it was different to other roads. I may be wrong, but my understanding it was different in some way.
We've got different classes of road within the Shirley development. So some of them are I suppose, what you'd refer to as distributor roads. So the Southern Feeder Road is actually a distributor road, so it's a lot heavier grade pavement. It's a thicker pavement. It's designed to carry a lot more traffic. And then you've got other roads that would be classed as, Yeah, we've got right down to laneways and local roads that carry less traffic, less pavement thickness, all that sort of thing. Maybe only provide a secondary frontage to or secondary access to some small lots, and then on the edge of open space areas. But yeah, there's a whole range of different roads within the Cheryl DCP.
Thank you. And just one final question. Obviously, there's going to be council been working with the stakeholders, or so it would appear. I assume with this resolution that there's going to be an increase in land prices. So,
Can't imagine how, because we're stuck at the $20,000 cap.
yeah,
That
but the
$20,000
developers
cap currently applies for most of these areas anyway.
But the developers are going to have to pass on their cost, aren't they?
They already do.
You're saying that the developers' costs are going to cover that amount?
Absolutely. This is a small drop in comparison to the price of a block of land in Orange at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Malota, do you want to close the debate or are happy to vote?
Happy to vote, thank you.
Thank you. We'll put the amendment first, which is for deferral or in favour. 2, 3 against.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. The motion is as printed, which is for approval. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll get Councillor Kinghorn back in the room, please. That's it. Yes.
I can tell you off here, it is 7:42.
Beautiful. At the time being 7:42, I'll close the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting and hand to Councillor Greenhouse for Sport and Rec. Thank you.
I'd now like to open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting of the 2nd of April at 7:44. There's no declarations of pecuniary interest, is that correct?
Correct for this one.
Beautiful. So item 2.1, minutes of the Sport and Recreation Community Committee meeting held on the 28th of February 2024. There's a recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McDonald and Councillor Floyd. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Chair. On page 18, the Action Plan 5 reports the Orange Hockey recently received $300,000 from state government to upgrade Smith Field. Was that the grant that we were discussing in previous weeks, or is that a different grant where we haven't heard about yet?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, it's a different grant. So that's part of the 900 that they've accumulated over there through their efforts.
Tuned.
If there's no further discussion on this.
Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is in regards to the actual whole sports precinct, which is on the on presentations, which is 3.1 to the Orange Sporting Precinct. I just want to know where can we find the information that was given to us by the Premier that he said we want to build the sports stadium first before the athletic stadium.
Through Mr.
And also,
Chair.
but to go, let me finish first. And I'd also like to follow up on what I looked at the actual size of the actual ground to make sure before we even start that it is the correct size.
Through Chair, We're bringing a report back to the next meeting, which we discussed in open on both the Sports Precinct and the Planetarium Conservatorium. We'll answer in that, and I'll circulate the Premier's press release to the Council. Good answer to the first question. Thank you.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I suppose it'd be interesting to know, and I know the numbers probably aren't there, but what would be the estimate of revenue that's brought into the city with all of the sporting activities that are occurring in this city? Because I notice every weekend there's something. There is some sporting activity in our community which attracts numerous people from outside our city. Do we have an idea? I know we can't get down to dollars and cents, but
just while the
there must be an
director's
estimate.
coming up, Councillor Whitten, I can confirm we have approximately 64 teams coming to Orange to compete this weekend in a pre-season rugby league carnival venues.
Weekend, and
That's just this
something
weekend.
every weekend, yeah.
Again, through you, Madam Chair. So we do have an estimate of the events we bring to town, as in council supports, and we keep that. There's a table we can provide that. We don't necessarily track every event. So this, the event next weekend, I don't think we've got direct engagement in that event. And there's numerous other events that occur across Orange that we don't have direct involvement in, but we can certainly have a crack at it.
I think it'd be very valuable for the community because it gives an idea to the businesses, and I would have thought something like business chamber especially would be very interested in. It allows the businesses to forecast activities based on what's happening in the community, and I think the number will be very big.
Well, they would
from
be.
a dollars point of view.
They would be,
yeah.
Councillor, absolutely.
It goes towards promoting the city on. This is the type of revenue that comes in just on activities from sport, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll hand over to the Mayor.
I think it's valuable information because I know we're slowly bringing more events, and that's through the partnership we have with Australian Sports Marketing, who are offering Orange up as a destination site. But then I want to make a comment on us providing the proper infrastructure to hold those sort of competitions pays for itself later on down the track. I know we've had consultation once the sporting precinct's built. We've had some meetings with Australian Touch Football. Orange, we will be able to have 21 fields. They've told us there's nowhere in Australia that has that sort of facility, and that's what they look for. They want it all on the one place. So the competitions that we'll be able to draw for that will be mind-boggling, and the money that's poured into the businesses and the hotels and the restaurants and the petrol stations, you won't be able to judge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I just want to flag something I want to bring up through closed about the old trotting track. We do it closed.
Okay, thank you. And just to add to the Mayor's comments, we've got those 64 teams on Sunday. We've got 3 teams coming from Sydney to do a trial at Sturgeon Oval on the Saturday for playing against Orange Hawks. So they're coming in on the Friday night. So it's going to be a massive weekend in town for sport, which it has been ongoing now for, it's massive and it's only going to grow. So if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Sport and Rec Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 2:08, and I'll now call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee meeting. Yep, I'm out.
Thank you, councillors, and I declare the Finance Policy Committee open at 19:49, and I will call for any disclosure of interest, that being the Mayor and Councillor Greenhill.
assume they're gone at a safe distance. And we have item 2.1, which is the small donations. And we have one here from the Orange Bloomfield Rugby League.
I'll move the recommendation.
And been moved by Councillor.
Just a question. Was Councillor Evans a declaration of an interest, or has he just had a toot break?
No, he's just not in the chamber.
Right. Okay. Just wanted to double check.
Okay.
Not in this chamber.
Wait for him, or
Who was the mover of the motion? Councillor Whitten and seconded by Councillor Floyd. Any discussion? Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support the recommendation. What I would have liked to have seen, though, that a representation made some of these businesses who do provide these portaloos. I would think that there may have been an appetite for them to perhaps donate them for the weekend, knowing the contribution they would be making to the community and general sport or junior sport as a whole. I don't see that any approach being made to any other organisation, whether it be, and I don't want to name them, they know who they are, but they do freely donate to other sporting activity. I'm just wondering why that approach wasn't made before it came to council, that was all.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. The matter is unanimous. Call Councillor Greenhill and Councillor Hamling back into the room. Councillors, I have one matter arising, and that is, if you could take this on notice, Mr. CEO, is that could we have a report come to council on the Easter Festival as regard to the council contribution, whether it be in kind or cash, and what staff were required, what police were required, numbers, and what else we provided as far as security. Was there anything there at all? Could I have it in black and white?
What Easter Festival?
It was the day after the Rainbow Festival,
the Sunday.
Okay,
it's run by the local churches.
And also, could we have the details again of invoice and accounts, document costs and kind of the Rainbow Festival? Delivered to each councillor.
Of course.
Thank you. Any further discussion for finance? No further discussion. I'll close finance at 19:52.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll open the Services Policy Committee meeting at 7:53. Do we have any declarations of interest from any councillors? Nope. Easy done. Item 2.1, page 5 is the minutes of the NAIDOC Week Community Committee meeting.
Move the recommendation, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, and seconded by Councillor Power. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand, please. Thank you. Unanimous. Item 2.2 is minutes of the Clifton Grove Community Committee meeting the 14th. Recommendation is on page 27. Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh and Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 2.3, minutes of the Cultural Heritage Community Committee meeting of the 18th of March. Page 41 has a recommendation. Councillor Power moved and seconded by Councillor Mallard. Thank you. Any discussion? Sorry, your microphone, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge that as of the last meeting, we had the privilege of having 3 more Indigenous people, Uncle Neil Ingram, Mr. Jordan Moore, and also Greg Ingram, to be a part of the Cultural Heritage Committee, and it's really good to have these amazing people here creating the diverse voices, as what any of these service committees
that sits within Orange City Council, and we encourage any representation in our community to be a part of these committees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr Deputy Mayor, any other discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Unanimous, thank you. Item 2.4, minutes of the Spring Hill Community Committee meeting of the 21st of March. Page 61 has a recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Floyd, for moving and Councillor Kinghorn for seconding. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Yeah, unanimous. Okay, item 3.1 is our alcohol-free zone proposal from the 1st of August 2024 to 30th of September 2028, moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Miletto. Any discussion?
Just got a question. I just want to
Sure.
know how it lapsed.
I'll hand that through to the Director.
Between us and the police, we missed it. Basically what happened. Through you, Madam Chair.
So for any other... Okay, yeah, no, leave.
Any other? Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, I don't have a problem with it, but wondering why it's so big. Like a lot of the drinking holes are in sort of that Summer Street bordered by Bing and Kite. I'm just wondering, it goes from Moldith to Prince, why it is that way.
Director Maunder, can I ask you to answer that one, please?
Through you, Madam Chair. Again, we're guided by police, and that's their request for that zoning. We can certainly get some more information from them on that. It normally comes out through this consultation process. I think it is regarded. It's an interesting topic, the alcohol-free zones, because there's you can drink in parks and you can drink on streets. The only places that you can't are in alcohol-free zones. So you can drink at any of our parks. You can drink at Lake Canobolas. You can drink at Brabham. But the police ask us to have an alcohol-free zone to help them maintain the CBD. And again, there's a linkage to the number of establishments, wineries, etc. Restaurants, etc. in town.
If they're happy with that, I'm happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, and I certainly support the recommendation. I've just got a question, and whilst I chair the Crime Prevention Committee meeting, I've never seen any data come through with regards to infringement notices and what benefit the community get out of this. So is there any offences being detected that we're aware of, or is there any information available?
Through you, Madam Chair, we don't receive the stats. We can certainly ask for them. It's a policing tool. It allows them, if someone's drinking alcohol in that zone, to tip out the alcohol that's being consumed. Police, as you would be aware, Councillor, with your background, also have the ability to issue a move-on order, which, if not complied with, attracts a fine. So that's the other tool that police utilise as well quite often when they need to move someone on, obviously. But again, through this consultation process, we can ask for that data.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Thank you, unanimous. That concludes the Services Policy Committee with the time being 7:59. I'll hand back to our Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. In the council meeting, and we'll move on to item 4.1, notices of motion. Councillor Pearson, you're moving this?
I am going to move an amended version, please.
Can I hear the amended version?
Indeed. To seek that council seek community opinion and feedback on a proposed speed limit reduction for all or part of the length of Pinnacle Road within the local LGA, and not putting forward 2 and 3.
Second that.
Cool. So I'll speak to it, saying that I've been asked to bring the consideration of potential speed limit change to council on behalf of the cycling committee. They're concerned about safety on the Pinnacle Road, especially in the case from the descent from the Pinnacle picnic area past Stairs Rose and the bends above Wallace Lane. Over the staff and public comments, I acknowledge people that came tonight about seeking community support before any review make perfect sense. Lots of people use that road, not just cyclists. There's certainly some areas of much greater risk than others, so any speed limit adjustment could be targeted at those areas. However, alternative view, which has been mentioned to me by council staff, says that multiple speed limit changes can be confusing to motorists on the same road. So I think it's worth talking it out. If this chamber feels that a lower speed limit could be appropriate in some areas, then I'd be happy if the process could be started with an open mind, see what all the stakeholders have in mind. And this also would serve the useful purpose of highlighting any other safety improvements for that road beyond adjusting the speed limit only.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question first, and then I'll speak to the amended motion. When I know it's been removed from the motion, but when Transport for New South Wales does their speed reviews, do they normally consult with the residents along an area, or do they just sort of look purely at data in terms of like numbers of cars and speeds and that sort of stuff?
No, if they're acting on a request from local government, then they expect local government to do that.
Right.
Stakeholder engagement piece.
Yeah.
They'll simply go through and count up things like number of driveways, the any accident history. They take into account a number of things. But yeah, they did say they were open to doing a review. And a
review doesn't necessarily result in a reduction. It just means a review of.
Automatically result in a reduction. I've certainly lobbied Transport for an increase in the speed limit on Leeds Parade past the showground and what have you, because there's hardly any driveways in there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it gets through. So they've maintained the 50k speed limit all the way through.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy to support the new motion. I would possibly suggest that maybe I don't think there was. I think there's merit in working with Cabon as well. I suppose 0.3 sounded good, but not necessarily seeking support, but seeking their input would be a good idea as well. But happy to support the motion.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First clarification on the catchment of who's going to be reviewed from a community point of view. Are we only, because at the end of the day, the speakers that were here tonight speaking against are the people who live out there. They're the ones who are impacted on change of speed. We include the entire community, they're going to get voted down real fast, potentially.
Potentially and potentially not. I think it's up to council to consider a weight of, and it will be presented for those. I'd say it'll be a your say expression, but all those directly affected will actually be contacted and told about the your say piece where they can respond and also perhaps nominate whether they're directly affected, like whether they live on that road or not.
Is it possible for us as councillors to hold residents who live there? I know that the your say is potential.
No, but we can identify them as either a resident or a business along that street if we have that in the introduction stuff. We still keep it anonymous as far as who's actually responded to the your say.
I'm sure we'll find out when the residents.
Chair, we can do it very much like we did the renaming of the Southern Feeder Road. We are giving you information on affected route, and we'll give you wider city data.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, and I thank the Councillor Steve Peterson for bringing this up. The motion says safety of cyclists and other road users. Is there, through yourself, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, is there any data in relation to accidents of cyclists during around this route?
I'd have to take that on notice, but I have I have heard of the odd issue between cyclists and other road users on that route.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I was going to ask exactly the same question. But in addition to that, I was wondering whether it would be possible for a report to be brought back to council at the same time as the community consultation is regarding speed counter, so we can get a better indication of what type of speeds people are currently travelling out there, and whether it's possible to also count the amount of bicycles over a 2-week period. So assuming that there is an appetite for bicycles to use that route, I'm just wondering how many of them are there. Lots doesn't tell me much.
I think the road classifiers that we use currently, I don't think they actually determine between bicycles and motorbikes. So it'd be I suppose laminated data, so to speak. But we could certainly put a road classifier up there to see what speed limits have been done.
So Kinghorn.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We went for a bit of a drive up there on Saturday, and it's hard to get to 80 kilometres there anyway because the road's pretty crappy. It was a sunny day, so there was a lot of shadow from where the trees are, and it does mean that it could possibly be difficult to see cyclists. We did see a couple of them, and most people just instinctively slow down. I wonder if it's worth putting a couple of signs up saying caution cyclists. Does that make any difference? Evidence for that?
Took a fair while to get the other ones out.
I believe there are some signs around caution for cyclists ahead on that route.
Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm fully supportive of the amended the recommendation of Councillor Peterson, specifically if it contacts everyone along that road, whether they be in Cabon or in Orange, whatever the case may be, that to have individual assessment or comment from each and every one of them. I think that's paramount and important, because if you go outside that perimeter, you start to talk about the whole mountain and the whole area around there. And let me tell you, if you're going to talk about that, the area's not safe itself. It's even coming down the mountain, Mount Canobolas, or anywhere else, and some of that road around past the Borrowdale and all those areas there, they're not user friendly for people on push bikes or even motorbikes, and even in a lot of places cars. So I think it needs to be an overhaul of the whole area, let alone that, and that's probably one of the disappointments of not getting an amalgamation through. But I'll support it along the lines that individually we don't go outside that scope, we go to the users.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was happy to support the original motion, but I think the amended motion is fine as well. I've got no problems with that at all. I think the community consultation aspect of it is great, and that also leads to council's transparency showing through as well over this to the ratepayers. So 100% behind the amended motion tonight.
Thank you. I'll just make a quick comment. I support the amendment. I think what we need to look at is the actual state of the road too. Like, if we are going to be promoting that as a tourist drive, I think we need to. I know there was a motion put in the last council, by a certain councillor, trying to widen the roads all around and have cycling paths. That's going to cost a lot of money, but I think consultation is the way to go with this. And I think, it's already 60 up to the top of Pinnacle there where it is Cabon, and then it goes to 80 when it's in our council area. So I think community consultation is the way I go on this, and I commend Councillor Peterson for amending his motion. Councillor Peterson.
I just close by saying I know there has been car counters put in on Pinnacle Road within the term of this council to get some of that data. I'll see if we can get that for councillors. I am aware of some car versus bike incidents, but honestly that can occur on other roads. So I think that on itself, doesn't speak too for or against. And as to Councillor Duffy's thoughts, maybe that if there is ever a broader recreational plan of what happened to Mount Canobolas, the roads in general could be considered at that time. Otherwise, thanks for people's opinions.
Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion the amended motion, which is, could you read it out, please?
Sure. To seek community opinion and feedback of a proposed speed limit reduction for all or part of the length of Pinnacle Road within the local LGA.
I'll put the amended motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Move on to general reports 5.1, recommendations from the policy committees. I have a mover. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Floyd. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Move on to 5.2, policy review, subdivision and development code. Councillor Kinghorn will be leaving the room. Councillor Floyd, did you put your hand up?
I said happy to move.
Oh, happy to move the subdivision code. Seconder, Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a concern with this as regards to the actual the response that we have. I think we only have one person that's responded to something like this.
We had
And
two.
I
We had two. We had a late one this
Yeah,
afternoon.
we have. I haven't seen that. But my concern is that we don't have many major developers in the city as regards to that. Now, I think it probably would be a good idea if we had direct consultation with those developers. I think setting it out there and waiting for it to happen for us is probably when you've got so few in there. I think probably a better way to go.
So what are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is we should contact them. I know previously.
Are you moving an amendment?
I can happy to move amendment if you wish that we defer this and have more direct consultation with.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Miletto.
Yeah, have direct consultation with the developers of the city. I know at a previous council we did do that, and it was very progressive actually, because I know that Mayor Davis was at the time. He proposed that, and we met at a certain venue, and councillors were welcome to come along and listen to what the developers had to say, and there were some positive aspects came out of that. And not being many major developers in the town, I think the invitation should go out again to them.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't support the amendment. And again, this is similar to the discussion earlier around the contributions plan. That there's been extensive work on this. There was consultation back in 2019, and we're now coming back around to it 5 years later. They've done another round of consultation. The staff have prepared this, as we were advised this afternoon. Can be from here a living document where there can be further revisions if they're needed, and more ongoing consultation. But as the report indicates to us, the current code is outdated. We should be updating it to reflect contemporary standards, and so I don't support the amendment. Thanks.
Councillor Mallard. Councillor Miletto.
Thank you. Just a question to the director, possible. This is certainly obviously an important document. I think it was before council about 4 years ago. There's also obviously been a number of changes, particularly with the defects, liability and maintenance, which are important with contravene the Environment Planning and Assessment Act of 79. And that was addressed back in 2019. But I'm just wondering why we only include, and it's probably to Councillor Duffy's point, is we've only asked for feedback from probably one or two developers, why we have never asked for a small working group of people, such as consultants, developers and contractors, to have a round table and add further input into what council are already considering. Well, why don't we have working groups? And so these groups, so we can meet these public expectation of what required to ensure the council has a robust, consistent, clear and economical, sustainable code that used by council and developers.
A couple of points in there, and if you read through the submission and the responses, while the submitter claims that it's against the EP&A Act, the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, our staff have put a response back in there that they believe it is not in contravention of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. The claim that we've only gone to one or two developers, is also incorrect in that we've publicly submitted this twice now. So it's gone out to the whole public. Everyone was aware of it.
I understand that, but part of the question that I ask is, why don't we have a working group includes other stakeholders, not just developers, consultants and other contractors? That was my question.
Well, up until now, there's only really been one person interested until very recently, and we got a late submission there today at 3:45 this afternoon. And we had responded to the first applicant. Some of his concerns with the review were certainly legitimate.
Yeah,
and those were taken into account and changed.
Yeah,
Some of them weren't, and so they weren't taken into account.
With all due respect, that wasn't a question I asked. The question is, why haven't we had or proposed small working groups so we don't get into this situation where we only have one? Why don't we include consultants, developers and contract and other stakeholders as a working group? That was my question. No, I'm not.
I don't know that all of them are actually interested, but I'm happy to have one.
That's what I was asking.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I don't support deferring this. I mean, as we can see, this has been 30 years. 1997, I was in year 11. A long time ago. What's that? 1. Oh, God, that makes me feel even older.
Councillors.
Look, as was mentioned, this has been a long time coming. It has been out on public exhibition. It's not developers are big kids. They're adults. They're able to what's happening, and I have no doubt that every single developer in the area would have been aware that this was being worked on over the last several years. And have had plenty of opportunities to engage and raise any concerns they had, as well as having the public exhibition period. So given that this is vastly overdue and it can be updated as we go along, I see absolutely no reason why we should delay any further.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm going to support adoption for the simple reason is that Council has expended a lot of money in developing this paperwork and the review. Is it perfect? Probably not. Has there been enough opportunity for the developers to have input? And probably the reason that Council haven't got a working party or a committee of developers is because we haven't instructed the staff to do so. So I think the idea of Councillor Miletos is a good one, because we did do it many years ago, and it was, as you would expect, bringing a lot of developers into one room. They've all got different ideas, all good ones, because without developers, the community does not forward. They take all the risk. So we need a good, healthy relationship with the developers. Otherwise, we don't generate homes for our children. We don't generate jobs for our tradespeople. So we've got to have a really good, healthy relationship with developers. But I'm not going to stop this proposal for adoption for the simple fact that it would we'd be wasting money and time. And I think that it needs to get moved forward and be approved. But it doesn't stop us from Councillor Mileto coming up with ideas to work closely with developers legally, and I'll emphasise that because thank you to the staff for the report. But thank you to those developers who did have input, and for those who put the late submissions in. We keep talking to you. Don't go away.
Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as part of this is a living document, just one small point. At the council meeting on May the 5th, 2022, council passed a motion enabling and encouraging community members to nominate names of individuals with historic links to Orange for street names. I was hoping that in section 1.16.12, which is on page 50 of our papers, could be referenced or, as part of the process, be something that goes on behind the scenes. Thank you.
There being no other speakers, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Defer.
1, 4.
Against? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Duffy. Motion carried. If we can get Councillor Kinghorn back in, please. Thanks, councillors. We will now go into closed meeting. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
I am in receipt of no such submissions.
With the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2021, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind referred to in section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of Council closed meeting, Council to press public. 6.1 tender F4054, remediation of Pine Lane Stormwater C7 Basin is classified confidential under provision of 10A2. C. Information that will be disclosed confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom Council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.2 nomination of council attendance 64th Floodplain Management Australian National Conference is classified confidential under the provision of section 10A2F, matters affecting security of council, councillors, council staff or council property. 6.3 submission of redaction 2nd of April 2024 is classified confidential under the provision of section 10A2E, information that would be, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law. Can I have a mover that we go into close and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Whitten, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favour? Against? Carried.